سب مٹا دے، تمنائے دل کی میرے سب مٹا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے۔ وہ شاہ دو عالم ہے میں جانتا ہوں، سیاکار ہوں یہ بھی میں مانتا ہوں، سیاکاریوں کی نہ مجھ کو سزا دے، سیاکاریوں کی نہ مجھ کو سزا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے۔ یہ نسبت میرے دل کو شرمندگی ہے، خبر ہے مجھے جو میری بندگی ہے، اسے ان کے عرفاں کا زینہ بنا دے، اسے ان کے عرفاں کا زینہ بنا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے۔ میری ذات میں انقلاب آئے ایسا، سوا ان کے کچھ میرے دل کو نہ بھائے، تمنا کے انوار سے جگمگا دے، تمنا کے انوار سے جگمگا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے۔
الحمدللہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی رسول اللہ، اما بعد، فاعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ قال رب اشرح لی صدری ویسر لی امری واحلل عقدۃ من لسانی یفقہوا قولی، فاذکرونی اذکرکم واشکروا لی ولا تکفرون، صدق اللہ العظیم۔ We begin any gathering with the praise of our Lord, the most gracious, the ultimate ruler of all the worlds, the remover of difficulties, the giver of both honor and disgrace, the ultimate judge and the most just entity. We then send peace, salams and salutations upon the greatest creation of all, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we send peace and blessings upon the Ahlul Bayt, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, the Taba Tabi'in, the Awliya, the pious and the righteous. May Allah be pleased with them all. Now, the topic or the brief discourse tonight is to look at the question what one should look in for a teacher. Now, you can replace the word teacher with spiritual guide, Peer, Sheikh, Murshid, any of them terminologies all apply. And I will begin with the disclaimer that this is not my opinion, but it is based upon a video from Sheikh Ahmad Dabag, Hafizullah Ta'ala. May Allah give them a long life. So I thought I would just set that out because I am neither qualified or able really to define what we should look for in a teacher. But I'll put the question out to the attendees that what is it we should be looking for a teacher. Now when I talk about teacher, I'm talking in the Islamic sense, the spiritual sense. So I'm not talking about an English teacher or a math teacher as such. So Vas, you tell me, what should we be looking for in a teacher?
If the teacher tells us to do something, that he's practicing his own teaching, like what he says.
That's partly right, but realistically, you're only going to get to that point once you found the teacher. I'm saying before you're trying to identify that teacher. Once you have a teacher, and if he's telling you to do something, and clearly if he's not doing it himself, then you're probably, sort of, for example, if he said grow a fist-length beard and he's clean-shaven himself, you'd be slightly, perplexed about that. But I'm talking about the stage prior to identifying or finding the right teacher. What is it we should be looking for? With the Shahid?
Someone who's following the sunnah themselves outwardly.
Yes, that's part of the answer. I'll go through the answer. As you said, it's not a straightforward answer or easy question to answer. But realistically, how we address this topic is this, that when we are looking for a teacher, it is first the student who needs to know the path. What is it he wants? Because if you don't know what you want, then how is it you're going to find someone who may be able to deliver what is it you want? And most people say, well, what is it I want? People will say, well, I'm not so sure. Maybe I want Jannah. So maybe somebody who's going to lead me towards that. Or maybe if somebody's going to make me more pious as such. And the example is, let's say, if we wanted a car, you've got to know what a car looks like. You've got to have seen a car. Otherwise, I could sell you a donkey and you'd say, that's a car. If you haven't got a clue what the car ever has looked like, then you aren't going to know any better. If I said to you, look, I'm going to sell you an Apple iMac laptop, and you've never seen one in your life, or you've never seen a picture of it, you don't know what it looks like, what it does, I could say, here you are, and it's a laptop made by HP. And the example of a car is, we all know it should have wheels, an engine, body, doors, etc., etc. So we have some kind of idea what a car looks like. And so therefore, if you might get sold a car, it might not be a very good one, but you'll still have a car of some sorts. And I use the example of a mobile, where I know a brother back in the day when, I think some of you may know what Blackberries are when they first came out. He bought a Blackberry off some guy in town who was passing, and he didn't realise that it was one of them dummies that they have in mobile phone shops, which looks legitimate. It's only when he went home and tried to put the SIM in and realised that there's no back unit to it whatsoever. Well, that's a different point. So, we may get duped by certain people in certain things. But realistically, we have to know ourselves, what is it we want? And the path, if it is you want the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then realistically, there's those of you in the Zawiya, and you see on the right-hand side where the sound is, you'll see that display on the wall. And that, in essence, is the path to Allah. And it's obviously contained in this book as well, the course book. So realistically, you have the path to Allah in these books and on that screen. But even if you were to buy that book, let's say in a bookshop, you're not going to find the path to Allah by just reading that. So realistically, you're going to have to search for the person who's going to guide you to that path to Allah. Just like if you wanted a car, and you might think, well, I want a white car, I want it to have alloy wheels, I want it to have a sunroof, or whatever it is, a convertible. Then if you're sat at home thinking, I want that, you're not going to get it by sat at home. You're going to have to go out and search for it. So you might look on, realistically, yes, I suppose these days you could do it at home by looking at Auto Trader, eBay, online websites. But even once you find the car, you're going to actually physically go somewhere to look at it. And you're not going to buy a car just simply online and then not see it. And so when we are looking for that teacher, there's two things we are looking for. Brother Shia got one of the answers, which was the outward sunnah, and the other is the inward sunnah. And we all tend to, as he said, give probably less emphasis to that, because visually it's easier to meet the outward sunnah, and it's easier to see whether other people are adherents to the sunnah by looking outwardly. And none of us we can't look inside ourselves realistically. We probably shy away from looking inwardly, and most certainly we can't see the inward states of others. But even that, let's say you're at the beginning of that path, how do you know what that sunnah is? How would you know what is a sunnah? I mean, we all probably know the example of the beard, which is one of the most common examples, and probably the dress code and the topi or the imamant. But how would we know what the sunnah is? Brother Adil? Yes, absolutely. So you will read the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ, the Seerah, and that will tell you what is the Sunnah, the outward and the inward of the greatest being of all, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So by reading that, you would have a more accurate and full understanding of the Sunnah, exactly what it entails, not just simply a beard and a imamah, but the other aspects, as he said. We may know, again, eating with the right hand. Most of us know that is a sunnah, as he said. But the various other sunnahs, even of eating, like having water first in 3 sips, and all these kind of things. These are sunnahs which we might know now, but we probably didn't know when we came onto this path necessarily. And I said, obviously, that you will know then a descriptive feel of what the sunnah is. And if you went to a teacher and he says, I am the kutub of the time, I am this, I am that, but he has a designer beard, you'd probably think, well, this is not an embodiment of the outer sunnah, because it's quite accepted what is a beard should be. And yes, there are some certain nationalities who may struggle to grow a full-on beard, but you're generally able to tell them. But if somebody's got very designer type beard, as he said, maybe lines going through it, or I don't know, and he's saying he's a teacher to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you're probably going to think twice. Other examples can be the teacher meeting women without mahram present, saying that the rule does not apply to me. The Prophet ﷺ never was alone with women. He always saw them with their mahram. So if somebody's claiming that somehow that rule doesn't apply to them, they are not greater than the Prophet ﷺ. You have, or you may have teachers or peers or sheikhs who don't go and read Jamaat at the Masajid. And one example was given of a teacher or a peer who said to his murids that I don't need to go for Jamaat because I spiritually read at home in Medina Sharif. And it said that when he did go to Medina Sharif with his group, he would still pray in the hotel. So then his murids realized this guy's a bit of a joke, because now we are physically in Medina, he still sat in his hotel. I'll give my own example. Many years ago, I knew a peer of a kind of well-known background, just like, let's say, Ajmer Sharif, Gomkhor Sharif, these big type who everyone recognizes. And he used to live in Bradford, and at the time there was literally a mosque 30 seconds from his house, but he would read at home, and whenever people were there he would send them to the mosque, but read at home himself. Now at the time, through my own ignorance, I didn't make anything of it, but now I'm thinking, well, what kind of teacher was he that he's sending his murid to the mosque, but he sat at home praying himself? When there's a masajid, literally went out through his back door, he'd be there at the masajid. And other elements of the sunnah, if you heard a teacher swearing, you wouldn't think he's embodying the sunnah. A teacher who is showing anger every single day, or quite common at little things. A teacher who backbites, criticizes other sheikhs all the time, or other groups constantly all the time. We wouldn't say those are embodiments of the sunnah. And so really, once you have an understanding of what are the inner and outer aspects of the sunnah, that really is what I would say your buying guide to find a teacher. You have that guide, you have that information to hand to think, is this person who's claiming he can take me to the path of Allah, is he following the sunnah himself? Because the reality of the modern day is that everyone will claim they will take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will be people making wild claims like they will get you to Jannah. But if you know the aspects of the prophetic character, the prophetic appearance, then you've got something to measure against. Now, is being pious enough to be a teacher? Anyone? Well, it must be, because isn't that we're all aiming to be pious? But yeah, you're right. It's not enough to say, well, okay, I'm pious. It equates to being a teacher. Because you might be pious yourself, but you can't teach that piety to anyone else. And again, I know of personal examples of people who just simply have served their teacher, their bead, they've done the khidmah, and they've then been bestowed some kind of position within that group, or there are people who are given loads of money to a certain bead and they've been told that they are a khalifa in a certain area, that they have a certain authority over murids. Yes, it is good to serve your teacher, absolutely, it's a good thing. But again, that in itself would not make you a teacher. And just like we would say to be a good doctor, you don't have to be healthy. So we wouldn't, to be a good doctor, you don't have to, as he said, be slim. All the doctor needs to know is how to diagnose illnesses and give you the right medicine. And we think, or often people will think, a good teacher is someone who's going to have a big beard. He has a big following. He's got the numbers. He's got madrasas all over the country and the world. But really, those are not the benchmarks on how we should be thinking who is the right teacher to take us to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's 3 questions you should be asking of any potential teacher. The first is that any teacher should give us the overview of the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that should be detailed in the sense of how is he going to do that, what station is he going to reach, even how long it could take. Of course, it's dependent on the person. Nobody can guarantee that you would reach any kind of station within 6 months, because it will be down to one's own steadfastness, sincerity, and the blessing of the teacher. But if you went to someone who said, the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this: read Durood Sharif, speak the truth, pray 5 times a day, fast, etc., etc., then know that he doesn't know the path himself. Because we don't need to be scholars or alims ourselves to know that we should speak the truth, we should pray 5 times a day, we should fast in the month of Ramadan, we should pay zakat. These are all basic tenets which everybody knows and everybody can tell everyone. You don't need to be a scholar to say to anyone, brother, you should be, or sister, you should be reading 5 times a day. And so if a teacher is saying that is the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then know that he doesn't know himself. All these, your local imam will tell you in a khutbah on Friday, you will hear the same messages again and again. Be patient, be truthful, be good with relatives, don't cheat, make sure you have halal earnings. These are basic tenets which I would say most Muslims, if not all, know themselves. Doesn't matter if you're practicing 5 times a day or not. And again, I give my own example that I thought knowledge was the path to Allah. And I got to a stage where I was praying 5 times a day, adopting a few sunnahs here and there, but there was something missing. So I then thought, I'll buy the Bukhari collection of hadith. Maybe if I read them, learn them, act on them, that will get me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I also had a thought that of studying in a place called Mauritania. Now, not many people know that, but Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he studied there, and I thought it's supposed to be a barren land. You'll become a zoid. You'll detach yourself from the outside world. You'll be away from technology, etc., etc. Maybe that will get me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I went to a few groups myself. I'm not going to mention any names, but one group would just do a dhikr gathering only with a few 2-3 minutes of Naseeha, and then it was just pizzas time. Another one was just encouraging doing dawah work, go and get people, and I'm thinking, well, I've not done anything myself, and yet I'm telling to try to bring others, just simply to effectively pray, when I felt just the 5 times a day, yes, it's obligatory, but we're not complete by just doing that in any shape or form. And often when people are looking for a teacher, they may get confused who is the right group, as we think there's only one right group and everyone else is wrong. And people often quote that hadith about the 72 or 73 groups and only one will enter Jannah. And we think, well, them 72, 73 groups include the modern day Brelvi, the Deobandis, the Salafis, etc., etc. So I've got to find the right group out of them because I want to be the one that gets to Jannah. Not that the 72 or 73 groups includes all the groups which started from time and will go through to the end of time. And so often people get confused which is the right group, because the reality is we don't know what we're looking for, what is the benchmark in terms of that. Everyone is giving you or promising you the promised land of Jannah, this, that, the other. And some people often fall into this trap of, because they're so confused, they see a certain group saying, we only follow the Quran and Sunnah, and it becomes attractive in that confusion. But really, obviously, the path to Allah is a physical outward journey, as he said, and it's detailed in effectively the purification course in terms of the organs, the mind, etc., etc. The second question you should be asking is, how will this teacher teach me the spiritual journey to the Prophet ﷺ? And this, again, in my experience, people or groups don't actually answer this question, because what they seem to suggest is, once you come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll naturally become closer to Prophet ﷺ. It's just love your teacher blindly. You might not do anything. You're new yet. You won't understand these things. It's above your thinking level. It's above your station, etc., etc. And they will often try to shroud it in mysticism, that you'll only understand that question when you get to a certain level, so don't ask the question now. And again, realistically, if anyone says that to you, again, the reality is they don't know themselves, because you're asking a simple question and they should be able to explain it at your level. It's not a path which is shrouded in mysticism that only a select few people will get to that station in this world, as he said, and that it's almost like a secret that you've got to be part of some secret type of club that only they will know, as he said, because somebody should be able to. What is the path to achieving that spirituality with the Prophet ﷺ? They should be able to tell you that. Why should it be hidden? The third question which one should ask is, what is the basis of the relationship between a student and teacher? And again, this concept is either not explained properly or people are misled about it. It's not about just simply saying, writing a check out to your peer so he can buy the latest brand new Mercedes. It's not just simply about carrying his bags. It's not simply about attending a gathering, having langar and then going home. There is obviously some good in all these acts. Now, I'm not saying these acts are wrong or haram in any shape or form. Clearly, if one wants to donate money to any kind of good cause, they have to have the right intention. But this is not the real basis of the relationship between the student and the teacher. And one of the the actual basis is, firstly, the student should be truthful about his condition, i.e., what sins he's committing, what is his inner state, what's going on at home, what's going on at work. There's no point turning up and saying to teacher, yes, I pray 5 times a day, I do this, I do that. The true teacher will know your reality anyway, but it's really for you to be truthful with them. Because if you want to go on that path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be sincere on that path and to even reach that path, you've got to be truthful with your own shaykh, your own mentor. And I always say that if you went to a doctor, you wouldn't hide your symptoms. You always tend to tell your full symptoms. People often exaggerate their symptoms, but you wouldn't hide it in front of a doctor. So I'm not sure why you would ever try to hide your real condition in front of a teacher, because if you want to follow that path, you've got to be truthful to them, and then they can tell you or prescribe the right path for you. Your job is to inform them and then follow what they're saying. That is the basis of the relationship. You inform them of your true self, your weaknesses, and they will then prescribe you to do certain things. And again, in that prescription, there's no magic pill. It will be hard steps. Now, even if you've taken all these steps and you've asked all these questions, how do you still actually know you've got the right teacher possibly? The reality is you've done everything now which is possible in your own power. You've kind of sought guidelines in reading the Shema, the Seerah, seeing what is the prophetic character, what is the prophetic appearance. You've asked these questions, and it's Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani rahimullah ta'ala who said that the true seeker at this stage should now stand in prayer at the Hajj time. And at that time, we all know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has descended to the lower heavens and He's asking His people, what is it they want? Somebody might want a new job, rizq, a wife, peace, in it, whatever that may be. But realistically, you would be asking, I want guidance and I want you to take me to the right person and you will guide me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you've done everything in your power, you then leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands and say, guide me to the right person. Is the person I went to see last night the right person? Because don't think necessarily you might find your teacher just sat in Nelson. If you live in Nelson, you may actually have to travel to Burnley for your teacher, or even further than that. And all the great awliya, the great mashaykhs of the past have all travelled. The example given is of Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. They went from, rahimullah ta'ala, they went from Iran to Iraq. So they changed countries. Imam Ghazali, rahimullah ta'ala, they left Baghdad and went all the way to Syria. Even our own grand teacher, Sayyidina Abdul Aziz al-Dabbagh, rahimullah ta'ala, they travelled to many countries in search of a teacher. Once you think you found that person, the right teacher, then one can also do the istikhara prayer. Because even then, one can have some kind of doubt in their mind whether they're the right person or not. And I remember when I was given the introduction to this path, that was what was advised. Because it was one of the questions I was asked. You're saying this, that, the other, but how do I know this is the right path for me? I don't want to wait 6 months, 12 months, 18 months and then realise it's not the right path for me, or I've been misled in any shape or form. And again, I was advised to do the istikhara. And often another question people or issue people get confused is they think you're just going to have one teacher for everything. So he's the teacher who's going to take me to show me the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's a teacher for Quran. He's a teacher for fiqh. He's a teacher for Aqidah, etc., etc. There's no restriction as such, that you can have a different teacher who teaches you the Quran. Or if you want to study, the fiqh or Aqidah or go into any kind of deeper studying. And you don't even need to, your teacher or you don't even have to have the same fiqh. Again, Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani has many followers, yet he himself was a follower of the Hanbali fiqh. Yet us Hanfis, we follow them, we hold them in high esteem, and yet they were a different fig. So, if they were present in the modern world today, they would be praying in a different way to us. They would be hands in a different position, etc., etc. They would do Ameen loudly after. And I can just imagine if somebody was like that in Gossia Mosque in Nelson, and people would be turning around like, how's he praying? As he said, obviously now people understand it more, but I can imagine 10, 15, 20 years ago, I think my first example was when I went to university and prayed Jummah there and saw these people doing different things, and I was like, oh, I'm sure they're doing it wrong because I've never seen anyone like that. But then you get to learn that there's different fiqhs, etc., etc. And further, our blessed teacher said that any teacher should hold 3 gatherings, and this was the advice given by a highly esteemed figure called Sheikh Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, who's regarded as the spiritual son of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala. And the 3 gatherings were defined as this. One should be a general gathering, a thirst builder. And the second gathering should be that those who have started the path with teacher, they should have a slightly more exclusive gathering for them because they're already on the path. And the third kind of gathering is at least the person should have access to the teacher on a one-to-one basis. That may be only for a few minutes. It can only be once a year, maybe, or twice a year, or 3 times a year, or whatever it is. Those are the 3 types of gathering which should be held by any teacher. But the failure we see with many groups today is they only have one majalis. You go there, you will maybe get some Naseeha, Dhikr, Langar, go home, that's it. And realistically, those are just thirst builders. They are building a thirst in for people, but then they're leaving them thirsty. There's no kind of path or majalis which quenches their thirst. And it's the same thing. I mean, I cite my own example. I started at a particular time prior to coming this path, just going to gatherings on a Saturday, Sunday in various towns and cities, in terms of gaining knowledge or whatever it was, as he said, seeking something. And realistically, they were just gatherings maybe of trying to impart some knowledge, as he said, and giving the general advice of be good to people, be patient, read your salah, fear Allah, don't follow the shaitan, control your nafs, without giving any practical kind of advice as to how to do it. It's like somebody saying to you, this is how you're going to lose weight, or this is how you can build your muscles, and giving you that, but then basically leave it to it. So when you go into a gym, you'll be like, what is this machine for? What is that machine for? They're not giving you the tools then to actually achieve that goal that you wanted. The other common misconception is that if you do find a teacher for your tazkiyah, for your purification, you stick to them. You should only have one teacher at any one time for that particular area. Just like if you're learning to read Quran, you're not going to have 2 teachers at the same time, are you? So you wouldn't do it for anything else. You wouldn't go to 2 different doctors and try to get 2 different types of tablet for that same condition. I also, when I started Itikaf a few years ago, Professor Azizi from Morocco, he gave some insightful discourses on what is true Sufism, what it means in the modern day age. And he said that the purpose of any proper Sufi group is not simply just to do zikr, though there is goodness in that, but he said that they need to offer some sort of purification process. And so it's not just simply about doing zikr once a week and then going away and being left to your own devices. So these are all the kind of questions and steps anybody who is looking for a teacher should be asking themselves. Otherwise, you may end up wasting a lot of years with a lot of groups until maybe you get to that right teacher, as you said. And don't be persuaded necessarily, but that is a numbers game. So, if a particular group has, gathering with hundreds and thousands of people, etc., that it's necessarily the right path for you. It doesn't mean the people who are not benefit from it, because different people benefit from different groups. And again, I recall our blessed teachers saying that, if you do this course properly, and if in 6 months you don't feel you're getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then go to another teacher. But I think we can all say that if we all do the tick sheets properly, even within 6 months, we'll see, or others should see, a material change in our, at least outward conduct in terms of the organs, and most particularly the tongue. So those, inshallah, most of us here already are on this path. And as you said, I think it's good to have this kind of guidance, because I often meet people from other groups, as you said, and I'm always inquiring as to what does that group offer, as you said. And it's interesting to see that effectively all they are getting is maybe zikr on a weekly basis, a bit of naseeha and food, and that's it. And you ask them about any kind of purification, it's not simply about just wearing the same colour hat, the imamat, the same colour dress as that group, as you said, or as your peer, and that will just do it. Equally, I know people who are part of groups where their peer is permanently in Pakistan, and only if they ever visit Pakistan will they see it. They have no kind of daily, weekly, monthly, even yearly contact, but they will say, I'm part of that group. And I've always asked the question, how is it that you are then getting benefit? Because realistically, I think the common misconception between the Pakistanis is just once I'm Beth or part of the group, that's enough. And that will, there is a real misconception thinking that as long as I'm Beth, I'm part of a group, I ascribe to a particular sheikh, peer, teacher, then that's all you've got to do. And, I'm not going to go into what is the real purpose of being Beth or what it actually entails, as you said, but it's something which is clearly misunderstood, as you said, in that regard. And it's a topic for which needs another discourse some other time. So just in conclusion, as you said, those are really the tenets or the questions we should be know ourselves. Firstly, what is it we look for a teacher? Because even if you're trying to give dawah, people will ask you these kind of questions. What is it that Tariqa Muhammadiyya could do for us that another group doesn't do, or whatever it is? And if we don't know ourselves really what is it we were looking for, or what we can advise other people to look for, then it doesn't help sometimes when you are doing the dawah to people, as you said, in that regard. If I've said anything wrong or not in accordance with Islam, I seek forgiveness from my errors, and all goodness comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I think we're now going to the Dhikr majalis. Yeah, so if I think there'll be a short break for Asr for about 10 minutes, and the Dhikr majalis will begin. I think that will the live stream will be a new one, or will it? Okay, so it will be a new link sent out for that.